Is it the beginning of a new era for Britain? Those are the words of the Chancellor today as he unveiled his mini-budget earlier on. There were big tax cuts for the rich, new investment zones and a permanent slashing of stamp duty that should see some extra money reach most of our pockets. Let's take a look at some of the headlines. The basic rate of income tax will be cut by a penny to 19p from April of next year. The 45p tax rate, that's for top earners over £150,000, will be abolished, so they will bring home more than £10,000 more every single year. And the cap on bankers' bonuses, which was limited to twice your salary, that's been lifted. The hope is that that will encourage more investment in the city and help fuel the growth that will boost the economy. That's the plan anyway. Well, it was a mini-budget by name, but these are just some of the huge host of measures announced by Kwasi Kwarteng in what's already been called the biggest tax-cutting event for 50 years. Here's our political editor, Andy Bell, with today's details.
Good morning, Chancellor.
No red box, because technically this is not a budget, but it sure looks like one, and a big one at that. For the Chancellor, it's all about growth and a decisive break with the economic policies, even of previous Conservative governments.
We need a new approach for a new era, focused on growth. That is how we will compete successfully with dynamic economies around the world. And that is how, Mr. Speaker, we will turn this vicious cycle of stagnation into a virtuous cycle of growth.
So there's a 1 penny cut in the basic rate of income tax next year and the abolition of the 45 pence rate, though these won't apply in Scotland. And he confirmed planned rises in national insurance and corporation tax will be reversed. It all adds up to the biggest tax-cutting budget since the 1970s, a total of £45 billion cut across different taxes. Most of this will go to the better off, but the Chancellor was unapologetic, for instance, when it came to ending the cap on bankers' bonuses.
We need global banks to create jobs here, invest here, and pay taxes here in London. In London. Not in Paris, not in Frankfurt, and not in New York.
The point at which people pay no stamp duty when buying a property will go up to £250,000, double the current figure. And for first-time buyers, it's going up to £425,000. But this doesn't apply in Scotland and Wales. And up to 40 new investment zones are planned, areas where there'll be tax breaks and looser planning controls to encourage investment. For the Chancellor and his boss, putting money in people's pockets through lower taxes is the way to growth.
We promised to prioritise growth, Mr. Speaker. We promised a new approach for a new era. We promised to release the enormous potential of this country. Our growth plan has delivered all those promises and more, Mr. Speaker, and I commend it to the House.
Labour chose to direct their attack at the Prime Minister.
She's been a minister for a decade and defended every single economic decision. So when the Prime Minister says she wants to break free from the past, what she really means to say is that she wants to break free from her own failed record.
Others are drawing attention to who will benefit most from the tax changes.
Well, these are really big tax changes and they disproportionately benefit the richest households. Someone earning £1 million will be getting a tax cut of £55,000 next year. Nearly half of the gains from these tax cuts goes to the top 5% of households.
He and his boss believe cutting taxes will stimulate enough economic growth in the end to pay for all this. But it is a gamble, and they are betting their house.
All right, let's join Andy live now outside Westminster for us. Andy, really good to talk to you. You summarised at the end there the question I was going to talk to you about, because it is a big gamble, and where's that money coming from?
Well, this is all being paid for, Dan, right now by more borrowing, because the government said nothing about cutting public spending, and as we've seen, they're cutting taxes. So the only way to make up for that is through borrowing more, but there's no official plan yet as to how they're going to start paying back the borrowing to get debt down as a proportion of national wealth. We promised there will be a plan, but we didn't get it today. And all of this, not surprisingly, is spooking an awful lot of people. So, for instance, today you had the pound fall to its lowest level against the dollar for 37 years as people sold off the pound. You also had a moment where people were selling off shares in stocks in London, all because people are concerned that, in the words of some think tanks who have been writing today, that the current path of debt in the UK, national debt is unsustainable. Now, the government believes in the end that the growth that they will stimulate through cutting taxes will pay for all of this. But right now, a lot of people are not convinced, and it is certainly a gamble, and people are wondering how this is all going to turn out.